Welcome to Future Trends, where we examine the latest stories reshaping tomorrow's international dynamics. This week's headlines: Hamas confirms Israel killed another leader in Gaza strike. France's parliament votes to repeal slavery-era Black Code. Hungarian lawmakers vote to reverse exit from ICC. African farmers shift to biofertilisers as Iran war spikes price, and tracking animal panic from space a boost for wildlife surveillance. Starting with politics, Hungarian lawmakers vote to reverse exit from ICC. The country's withdrawal from the International Criminal Court was set in motion last year by former Prime Minister Orban's government. Malta's Labour Party wins historic fourth term. The Labour Party secured an unprecedented fourth consecutive term in a victory for outgoing Prime Minister Abela, who had called an early election amid growing geopolitical uncertainty. Senegal's removed Prime Minister says his party will not participate in new government. With ongoing political turmoil amid a daunting debt crisis, Ousmane Sonko, the recently ousted Prime Minister and Pastef party president, met with President Faye, his ally-turned-rival. However, Sonko said points of disagreement emerged about the role of Pastef, which holds a large parliamentary majority. Prime Minister Frederiksen secures third term with new Danish coalition. The Prime Minister said she has formed a new left-leaning minority government after months of negotiations following inconclusive elections in March. The agreement secures her third term in office, bringing together four parties that hold a slim parliamentary majority. Albanian authorities probe seaside resort project linked to Jared Kushner. Anti-corruption prosecutors are investigating a luxury resort project linked to US President Trump's son-in-law after controversial changes in the area's protected status and land ownership, which opened it to tourism development. The project includes the uninhabited Adriatic island of Sazan and several hundred hectares of the Vjosanata protected landscape, a sensitive coastal wetland area. Moving to stories in conflict, NATO says drone that crashed in Romania was of Russian origin. The incident comes just days after the Czech president, Pavel, urged NATO to show its teeth in response to Russia's repeated testing of the alliance's resolve on its eastern flank, suggesting a range of options, including switching off its internet, cutting off its banks from global financial systems, and shooting down jets that violate Allied airspace. The drone carrying explosives crashed in the eastern city of Galati, causing a fire in an apartment block. Hamas's armed wing confirms Israel killed its new leader in Gaza strike. Mohammed Oder was killed in a strike in Gaza City less than 2 weeks after killing his predecessor. Israeli Defense Minister Katz called Oder one of the architects of the October 7, 2023 attacks that triggered more than 2 years of war in Gaza. Israel retakes Beaufort Castle in southern Lebanon. It is the deepest incursion into the country in more than a quarter of a century, as Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu ordered troops to move further into Lebanon in the battle against the Iranian-backed Hezbollah. The fighting in Lebanon has been the broadest spillover of the Iran war, displacing more than 1.2 million Lebanese through Israeli strikes and evacuation orders since March 2nd, when Hezbollah began firing rockets and drones into Israel to back ally Iran. Armed groups battle in Colombia in drug trafficking dispute. At least 52 guerrilla fighters from 2 rival armed groups were killed in the southeastern Guaviare department in a dispute over cocaine production infrastructure and trafficking networks. Each of the rival groups is an ex-FARC splinter faction that rejected Bogotá's offer of a peace agreement in 2016. Sudan medics say paramilitary force killed 27 in attack targeting civilians. The Sudan Doctors Network accused the paramilitary Rapid Support Forces of carrying out a long-range strike that killed at least 27, including elderly, in the Kordofan region, one of the epicenters of the civil war. The strike impacted an area without any military presence during the second day of Eid al-Adha, worsening already catastrophic humanitarian conditions. Now for the latest economics news. From methanol to pistachios and cement, Iran's role in the global economy is more than oil. The Iran war is choking trade in a range of Iranian exports that underpin supply chains across Asia and the Middle East. Iran is the second largest producer of pistachio nuts globally, with prices now at their highest level since 2018. Iran is the world's second largest supplier after China of methanol, used in a variety of industrial and household products. Iran also ranks as one of the world's largest cement producers. Africa's economic growth slows in 2026, projected to rebound. Despite a slight slowdown in economic growth this year to 4.2% from 4.4% last year, due to the war in Iran, Africa's economic outlook remains strong, the African Development Bank said in its annual report. While rising energy and import costs are taking a toll, it is projecting growth to rise back to 4.4% in 2027. Nordic coalition urges EU to stand firm against Arctic oil and gas drilling. The appeal sent to the European Commission cites environmental concerns and security risks if the EU decides to lift the ban on oil and gas drilling in the Arctic. Instead, EU leaders are urged to focus on electrifying the economy and transport while expanding domestic clean energy production. AI giant Anthropic to list on US stock market. The company behind the popular chatbot Claude, recently valued at more than $965 billion, is planning to make an initial public offering, IPO, this year. Anthropic's stock market plans, coming alongside those of Elon Musk's SpaceX, will likely function as a test of whether investor appetite matches the soaring valuations of AI firms. Iran war hands Syria revenue as airlines reroute over its airspace. Syria recorded nearly 12,000 aircraft transits in May as regional airlines rerouted into skies that most carriers had avoided for more than a decade. Overflights in May were about 375% higher than in the same month last year, and potentially lucrative for Syria, which charges $499 per flight over its territory, or around $6 million for May, even with European and US airlines still avoiding Syrian airspace. Turning to development, UK, German and French aid cuts will take devastating toll on most vulnerable. Cuts to foreign aid budgets by the UK, France and Germany could contribute to more than 11.5 million preventable deaths by the end of the decade, according to a new report, which warns that Europe is abandoning its role as a pillar of global health and development. UK official development assistance (ODA) spending is projected to fall by 45% between 2020 and 2026, Germany's by 37% between 2023 and 2026, and France's by 30% over the same period, according to the research. African farmers shift to biofertilisers as Iran war spikes prices. A growing number of smallholder farmers are adopting organic fertilizers and other environmentally friendly farming methods amid global price and supply shocks. Government officials are also trying to boost local fertilizer production, warning over potential disruption to underwater cables connecting Australia to world. With roughly 99% of Australia's internet flowing through just 15 subsea cables, Australia was among the most exposed nations in the world to attacks on critical infrastructure on the ocean floor, its deputy prime minister told an Asian security summit. Pacific Island nations were even more vulnerable, as they were often served by a single cable. Young children see meaning in human looks but not in robot gazes. Young children readily follow the gaze of other people but do not respond the same way to humanoid robots, highlighting an early distinction in how children interpret social cues. The findings of a new study suggest that while children naturally recognize and act on human gaze as a sign of intention and interest, similar cues from robots may not carry the same social meaning. How cool roofs could help millions avoid deadly heat. A pilot project to measure how reflective paint reduces indoor temperatures is delivering tangible benefits across Africa. Temperature data over 3 summers from 240 houses across Africa reveal that those with painted roofs are on average 3 to 4 Celsius cooler during the hottest time of the day. Finally, our social news. France's parliament votes to repeal slavery-era Black Code. For nearly 2 centuries after France abolished slavery, the colonial-era law that classified humans as property has remained law. The lower house of parliament has voted 254-0 in a rare show of unanimity to adopt a bill repealing Code Noir, or Black Code, the 1685 decree King Louis XIV signed to govern slaves across France's colonies. The law turned human beings into chattel, allowing them to be worked, beaten, sold, raped, and murdered. Tracking animal panic from space, a boost for wildlife surveillance. The new Icarus satellite is tracking signals hidden in animal behavior, which could save the lives of cheetahs, rhinos, and elephants. By monitoring how animals react to the presence of human intruders, conservationists hope to pinpoint and crack down on poachers. Why thinking about your legacy now could be good for you. A growing body of research suggests that better understanding our innate human interest in passing something on to future generations after we die could reveal new ways to improve mental health. Researchers have split legacy into three main overlapping categories: biological legacy, which we leave through our bodies and genetics; material legacy, represented by our wealth and possessions; and the legacy of our values, such as faith, culture, and heritage. Washing up water more damaging to environment than kitchen sponge microplastics. Researchers estimated that millions of households could collectively release hundreds of tons of microplastics annually. Although wastewater treatment plants capture a large share of these particles, several tons could still enter rivers, lakes, oceans, and soils each year. However, researchers found water use was a bigger contributor to overall ecosystem damage. Scientists discover inherited traits that break Mendel's laws of genetics. A major mouse study found that some inherited traits are passed down through epigenetic changes that break the classic rules of genetics. Researchers discovered hundreds of cases where these chemical DNA marks behaved unexpectedly, and also identified the first known naturally occurring paramutation in a mammal, hinting that environmental influences may play a larger role in inheritance than scientists realized. That's your Future Trends update for this week. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time with more stories reshaping our world.